Hey, what's up, everybody? I figure I get a chance to discuss my review on Return of the Jedi, which, of course, celebrates its 40th, anniversary. I can't believe where does 40 years come and go so quickly. So, for those that I guess are already familiar with the Star Wars saga, Return of the Jedi marks the third installment in the original trilogy, and at the time before the sequel trilogy came out, it was considered like the sixth installment overall, and it was the conclusion to the original trilogy, which takes place about a year after the events of The Empire Strikes Back, in which Han Solo was taken by Darth Vader and frozen in carbonite to Jabba the Hutt, and of course Lando Calrissian ended up defecting and joining Luke and Leia in their calls for the Rebel Alliance as they continue their fight to not only free Han from Jabba but also to end the galactic civil war, which of course started, you know, in the events of the Revenge of the Sith when Palpatine installed himself as emperor, and the Republic became the Galactic, Empire. And of course, Ian McDiarmid makes his introduction as Emperor, Palpatine, in this film, even though of course he would go on to, play the character in the prequel trilogy, and of course in Rise of Skywalker, which of course concluded the Skywalker, saga and the sequel trilogy. But anyway, in the events of Return of the Jedi, C-3PO and R2-D2 are sent back to Tatooine to rescue Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt, while Leia infiltrates Jabba's gang as a bounty hunter, and so does Lando as well. And of course, after Han is rescued and the gang are free from Jabba's clutches, Luke finds out the truth, of course, that Leia is, his biological twin sister, of course, for those that already know that Luke and Leia were separated, you know, at the end of Revenge of the Sith to prevent Palpatine from, discovering their lineage and using them as opponents in his, for the Empire. And of course, Luke also has to face off against, Darth Vader, who of course is, Leia and Luke's, father, while Han and Leia are sent to the planet of Endor to disable the shield generator, you know, which would allow the Rebel Alliance to kind of, attack and destroy the second Death Star, which the Empire, has, recreated, as a way of, how would I say, conquering the Rebel, Alliance, which of course the Rebel Alliance tries to prevent happening, and of course, it introduces the Ewoks, who are the natives of the planet Endor, who look like little teddy bears, but they're so adorable. In terms of how I feel Return of the Jedi holds up 40 years later, it's still a pretty good film, even though some people may have felt it was a little lighter in tone. You know, after and after the events of Empire Strikes Back, some felt it was an inferior sequel, but I kind of disagree, and I thought overall it was a good installment. And quite honestly, I think the prequel trilogy and the sequel, I'm sorry, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy is much better than watching anything in the sequel trilogy, since the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy were more wrapped down, had a plan, whereas the sequel trilogy kind of felt like it was a mess. And quite honestly, if they would have just left it here the way it was, to an extent, I feel it would have been better off, because I kind of feel like the sequel trilogy undid some of the progress with the characters, particularly with Luke and Han, and to an extent. So, but it was inevitable that the sequel trilogy was going to happen, one way or the other, but it is what it is. So overall, I would say Return of the Jedi marks a good conclusion to the original, Star Wars trilogy, and overall a fun film to watch even after all these years later. Okay, everyone, thanks again.